Hey, well, hello everyone. I'm Jay Arthur, and author of Lean Six Sigma for Hospitals, Lean Six Sigma Demystified, Agile Process Innovation. And at the end of this webinar, I'll give you a link to where you can download the new Agile Process Innovation book for free. And so I want to thank all of you for taking some time to learn more about how QI macros can make you more successful as a quality improvement agent and expert. So let's just jump right in here. So first off, I don't believe that you need to be a statistician to use QI macros. I'm kind of against it, right? So I think, QI macros are for people, not just statisticians. All right, so what we want to do is make it easy so that people can get on with improvement and not have to worry about the mess of charts and graphs and documents and all the diagrams we have to do. So I'm going to walk you through all of the piece parts of the QI macros. And we have four main parts. We have charts and wizards, which will automate a lot of your charting. And then we have fill-in-the-blank templates that'll make it easy to go ahead and do the ongoing management and, statistical process control and all of those ugly words that people don't like, right? But make it easy to do that. And then we have some statistical tools, and we have improvement project data mining tools, which are unique to QI macros and probably one of the most powerful things that we have in the QI macros. So Shigeo Shingo said, your business is like a banana. It's 46% waste. Now, Duran always said it was somewhere between 25 and 33% waste. So you get the idea that there's a lot of money that you could be adding to the bottom line. And when you do that, guess what? People are going to notice. Because companies will always need people who can solve problems using data, right? When I was in the phone company, after about 5 years, they decided that they weren't making any money, and it wasn't worth it. And so they brought us all in a room. They downsized the quality improvement department. And we were all bummed, and I walked back to my desk, and my phone rang. And it was the vice president of finance. And I'd helped her save $20 million in postage and $16 million in adjustments, and we were working on other things. And she said, hey, do you want to come work for me? Guess what? If you can help people solve problems using data, they're going to hang on to you. I mean, it's a very interesting thing to watch. So I want to talk to you first about the Improvement Project Wizard, because this is super powerful. Every multi-million-dollar project I ever worked on started with pivot tables. And it started out with data that looks like this stuff on the left, where by date, by line, there's bent or damaged flaps. In healthcare, this might be by date, by nursing unit, type of patient harm. These things exist in almost all of your systems. I worked with one metal manufacturer, and they had a whole detailed list of the scrap that they were producing, but they didn't have any way to analyze it. Looked a lot like this, by date, by machine type of scrap, and the amount of scrap. All right, so I see this a lot, and this is where the big money is. Many people talk to you about low-hanging fruit. Almost every one of the consultants I've ever known talked about low-hanging fruit, and then nobody could find any. That's because it's hidden, it's invisible, it's in data that looks like this stuff on the left-hand side. Now, I used to do this manually, first doing a pivot table, and then figuring out how to run a control chart on that, and then doing Pareto charts, and then drilling down into the table and putting up more Pareto charts, and then creating a fishbone diagram. And that would sometimes take me 3 hours to 3 days. And so back in 2017, I decided, hey, I bet I can automate that. And so I went to work on that. It took me several months to kind of get that all worked out. But now it's quite simple. And let me show you how that works. So it's going to take all this data, summarize it into a table, and draw control charts, Pareto charts, and fishbones with it. So if you have data that looks like this, it can turn it into an entire improvement project ready for analysis. All right, and I can't overemphasize how important it is to do the data analysis first, and then you pick the team to solve the problem. In my training, they always said, well, just get a bunch of people together and brainstorm ideas about... No, let your data lead you to the thing that you want to fix. And so we're going to have to look at and find some raw data, right? The when, the where, and the what happened. Maybe the how much and the who. So let me get over here. So this is the QI macros. We had a pull-down menu to Microsoft Excel. Under our help menu, we have some sample data. And down here, we can see that I have some data mining data. And if you look closely, this is what the data was looking like by date, by manufacturing line, type of defect. In healthcare, it could be, this is from Davis Balistracci's book, Data Sanity. How many RNs are available on a certain shift, time to thrombolytics? We might have something that looks like this. By date, by nursing unit, type of patient harm. Here's another one. Healthcare denied insurance claims. This one was worth $5 million. It might be something like ICU sedation medications, because we were trying to figure out what was causing delirium, right? Or it could be something that looks like this. Patient falls. Where did it happen? What unit, right? What was the location of the fall? You get the idea. So there's a lot of that out here. Now, Garrett just asked if this wording is going to be recorded. Yes, it is. And also there's a little question button on your control panel, and if you have a question, just type it in, and I'll attempt to answer that as we go forward. Now, we have a lot of people on the call that are healthcare and some that are manufacturing, and so I'm going to start with some healthcare stuff, and then we'll do some manufacturing stuff, because it doesn't matter what you're making. It doesn't matter if it's pistons or patients. You take the data, you can draw a chart about it. All right. This is everybody thinks they're unique, they're special, that you don't understand because we have no. I'm sorry. It's just data, and we can always chart it or analyze it. All right. So the improvement project wizard lives right up here underneath the QI macros, and so if you select two headings, so here I'm going to choose by date unit. If I click on the Improvement Project Wizard, it'll go out and pivot that data, turn that into control charts and Pareto charts and drill down and make all kinds of, put it all together, and then it'll come back and give you an executive summary. Now here you can see it came up with a control chart of patient harm by date, and then it came up with two projects. And then under this project, there's a high level, kind of an 80-20 Pareto chart. The Pareto rule, right? So 80-20, 20% of what you're doing is causing 80% of the harm, waste, rework, lost profit, whatever. And then the next one down is Pareto chart. So we take the big bar on the high level Pareto chart and drill down into the next level, right? Which is 4% of what you do produces over half the mistakes, errors, waste, rework, and lost profit. And then we get down to building a fishbone diagram based on the big bar of this Pareto chart. So let me walk you through that. And there was a question from Jennifer. She wanted to know, yes, we have a new version every year, and there are not free upgrades, but you can purchase them, and I'll give you a link to where you can go and look at what's new in the QI macros. All right, so let's go on and let's look at what it generated. So it did a pivot table, and out of that it came up with a control chart of by date type of patient harm, right? And we can see we're doing about 8 point something a day, so that's not good, right? Patient harm bad. Patient harm bad. And the Institute for Healthcare Improvement says that 1 out of every 2 patients suffers some sort of preventable harm while in the hospital. 1 out of every 2. That's a lot. Okay, so we want to stop that. But how do we do that? Well, you have to start to do some analysis. So here you can see we came down and it said, oh, Unit 3 has 53% of the total patient harm. Guess what? That means that we know where we ought to work, is in Unit 3. So if you were foolish enough to get together a team from Unit 1, Unit 2, and Unit 3, you'd have very different issues. Does this make sense? And we're going to drill down into this big bar, and then at the next level down, this is the 450 Pareto, patient falls are 40% of patient harm in Unit 3. And then what it'll do is turn that into a fishbone diagram and come up with a problem statement. During 2020, patient falls accounted for 39.5% of Unit 3 patient harm, right? But it doesn't stop there, so it keeps drilling down. And it looks at it the other way, so it goes at it by patient harm. And so patient harm, falls is the highest, then medication errors, then pressure injuries. Those three things are 67% of all patient harm. So if you wanted to fix everything that's, really move the needle on patient harm, what you'd do is come and drill down into these three things. But I'm going to start with this tool will look at patient falls. So it drills down into that. And it turns out that Unit 3 has 79% of patient falls. Oh, it's a clue, right? If we want to fix patient falls, we want to go to Unit 3. And I talked to one nurse at a conference, probably IHI or NACU, and she said, oh, yeah, we did that, and we drilled down, and we found that most of the patient falls were men between the ages of 20 and 40 in the orthopedic surgery recovery unit, right? Because men between 20 and 40 think they can jump up and run around. And so, of course, there's ways to prevent that from happening, right? And so if we want to prevent those falls, she said we just put in some countermeasures. They have things that let you know if people are trying to get out of bed without any help. So they put that in place, and patient falls dropped. So this is not, it's not that hard, but we just need a little data. And so then it'll build another fishbone diagram. Unit 3 had a 79% of patient harm, patient fall. And there's the original data, and then also there's our original data that we've taken. Now I talk to people, and they'll go out and they'll use their abacus to count the number of times that they see Unit 3 patient fall. And no, pivot tables will do that for you, and the improvement project wizard will automate all of that. So I just want you to get this idea that we can build improvement projects very quickly using QI macros. So again, we need that raw data, minimum requirement, when and where and what happened. If you know how much or who, it could be better than that. So here's the denied charges one, by hospital, by admit date, denied charges. So there's the where, the when, the what, the how much. And that was worth $5 million a year. Now, back then I was doing it all manually. It took me about 3 days to do the data analysis, create all the charts, and then we figured out who we should get in a room, and in about 2 hours they figured out what to fix, right? So, again, this is where the big money is, I believe. And in manufacturing, here's the scrap data, and here you can see the when, where, what machine, what type of scrap, and how much scrap was created. That was worth $1 million a year. So I just want you to get this idea that this kind of data can really move the needle on anything you want, whether it's scrap in manufacturing, or whether it's things that are out of spec, or whether it's patient harm. This can help you with all of that. If you have financial data about how much money is being returned to customers, because we screwed up, right? Discounts and all that stuff. You can use that on money too. So this is kind of a one-size-fits-all kind of an idea. One person said, I'm very impressed with the Improvement Project Wizard. Saves time, cuts down charting, and I've recommended it to all my colleagues here at the American Society Quality Leadership Community. So, back to our 4 parts. We've covered the improvement project, data mining tools. Now we're going to get into the rest of this stuff. So, I don't believe that you need to learn any formulas for control charts. These are well known. They are built into every SPC software product out there, whether it's mine or something that costs a lot more money. These are already built in there. And if they try and teach you that in a class, they're wasting your time. All right? And I also don't believe that you should need to learn decision trees. I have found that this is very difficult. And I was watching a presentation this December at the IHI forum where they were talking about this, and they were trying to teach the difference between attribute and variable, and then how to choose sample sizes to pick the right chart. And I was watching the chat window, and people were going, "This is where I get lost. This is where I get confused. You know, I don't understand. Right? Why are you teaching me this?" And it turns out that with every other software product, you actually have to know what chart to choose before you pick your data. And so you have to know how to navigate this tree. I'm against it, all right? So you may be used to using a decision tree to use the right control chart. But I built that into the control chart wizard, and I did that back in 2006. And so this makes it really easy to just select data, click a wizard, and get a chart. And so let me show you how that works. So I'm going to close our data mining for a second. So here you can see we have falls per 1,000 patient days. And you see here, all you have to do is select the data with your mouse. So by month, falls per 1,000 patient days. Now you'll notice we have a chart wizard up here, a control chart wizard, a stat wizard, along with an improvement project wizard. And what will happen is these wizards are able to, because you've selected the data, I can look at your data. If it's decimal, it has to be variable. If it's integer, it's most likely attribute data. But you don't have to know that, right? So if you click on the control chart wizard will go ahead and look at that data and say, oh, that must be an XMR chart. Now, we have things that will describe what XMR charts are, but here you can see our fall rate. And the QI macros will also identify any out of control points. And for those of you in healthcare, you can actually go in and pick the type of rules you want. So the default is Montgomery's rules, but healthcare, you can pick the IHI's rules and plug that right in, and you can start using exactly what healthcare uses. So here's 2 points above 2 sigma and then a downward trend. So all of a sudden we know something went kind of wacky, and then somebody probably made some improvements. Well, let's find out if there really was an improvement. So if you notice up here while you're on one of these cells, we have the QI macros menu. All you have to do to get to our chart menu is click on the chart. And you'll see it adds a chart menu up here. All right, and there's all kinds of things like adding data and target lines and text to a point. Stability analysis, showing and hiding rule numbers, right? I can show you what rule numbers were violate if you really want to know. You can show and hide 1 and 2 sigma lines. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can do in here to take a look at your data. Now, I used to get people to manually create process changes, but what you want to do is be able to show that there was actually an improvement here. And the process change wizard will look through your data and figure out if there's a trend or a run, and then adjust your limits for you. So here you can see we had a before that was actually stable. Then we made an improvement, and now we're down into, oh yes, we went from about 5.6, I think, yeah, 5.8 down to 4.5 falls. That's good stuff, right? So this is a way to show your improvement, right? And if there's a trend or a run, it'll pick that for you automatically. And that's the process change wizard. Now we have a lot of other tools hidden in here. So just so you know, I'm not going to cover all of them, but I wanted you to get this idea that we can do things very quickly to create charts, and then it's just an Excel chart, and we can manipulate it like anything else. If you want to change the title, you know, go ahead and change the title. It's just an Excel chart. All right, so that's the control chart wizard. And all of our wizards work like that. All right? Now let's go over and do that same thing with some automotive data. So here's piston diameters, 5 samples. If you select that data with your mouse, you can come over and click on Control Chart Wizard. And it'll look at that and say, oh, that, 5 samples, decimal data, that must be an X-bar R chart. And so here you can see we have a nice X-bar R chart. And if you want to do some capability analysis, now I don't find that we use capability analysis as much in healthcare, but we have the capability suite, which will go ahead and create capability metrics. So if you have your upper spec 23.5 and lower spec 21.5, the capability suite will, oh, shucks. Hate when I do that. You have to select all the data, Jay. All right, so our upper spec is 23.5, our lower spec is 21.5. And it will go ahead and create all of the charts for that. So we have an X-bar R chart, a histogram, capability plot, normal probability plot. And you can see here it looks pretty normal. It's pretty tight to that trend line. And then within here, it'll calculate your CP and CPK values. And 1.79 is over 5 sigma, and so is CPK. All right, so that's a way to get to capability analysis, control charts, and everything else very quickly. And again, that was either under histograms or under control charts. You'll find it in here as well. I put it in multiple places because sometimes people need it, all right? So I think you're starting to get an idea that you can do things quickly. Now, another thing you can do is if you really don't know what to do, you can just say, click on our chart wizard. Because people used to call me up and go, Jay, what do I do with my data? So I created a chart wizard. And the chart wizard will attempt to look at your data and go, what can I do with that data? And so most likely one, of course, is the X-bar R chart. But then it goes ahead and does a box and whisker plot. That's another way to look at this data. And it does descriptive statistics, so the data is normal, right? So it goes out and does a lot of things for you. So if you really don't know what to do, just grab your data, click on the chart wizard. And it'll go find every chart it can think of and draw that chart for you. All right, so that's the wizards. Wizards help automate a lot of these things that used to be challenging, like picking the right chart. You don't have to know all the formulas, because I guarantee if you compare my formulas and my results with anybody else, you're going to get the same answer unless they've made a mistake, which sometimes happens in the world of quality improvement. At NAEQ, they said this is like a magic program. You input the data, you click a button, and poof, there it is. It's all done for you. It's great. I love it. And this is my goal in life. Is I want to get 100 million money belts. People can use the tools of quality to create hassle-free healthcare, a hassle-free America. Now, what I do believe is that you need to learn the patterns, right? So one of the patterns with a control chart is that you want to reduce variation, right? You want to reduce it, squeeze it down. That makes sense? This is a standard thing that we do in Six Sigma process improvement is reduce variation. Or you want to move the center line up or down. So we might want to reduce defects. We might want to increase patient or customer satisfaction. Those are the things we want to accomplish. Now, I will tell you, back in the 90s, I took a control chart class, and we spent 4.5 days using the advanced technology called a calculator to calculate all those formulas by hand. And I can tell you what, I knew for a fact that I could not get the people in the phone company to learn how to do that. We had to automate it, right? And so after I left the phone company, I started building QI macros to make my life easy, and then it became a product for everyone else. Now, we only spent maybe an hour or two talking about what does the chart tell you and what are you looking to do with it. So I think that's very wrong. So just start drawing charts. And I can tell you when I used to teach this in classes, I'd show people how to do this, and even the most technically phobic would learn how to do it pretty quickly. And I know I'd won because they would start pulling down data from their internal servers to their laptop and start graphing their own numbers, right? They'd stop using my numbers and they'd start using the QI macros test data, and then they would go in and go, oh, hey, let's try that on XYZ thing. And that's when I knew I had them, because they could start doing this quickly. It really, these wizards really collapse the learning curve. You know, I teach Six Sigma in 4 hours. 4 hours. I'm not teaching everything, but I'm teaching the vital few tools, right? And when I do that, people are up and running, and very often they figure out how to solve problems right there in the room. I had one company that came up with $90,000 a month in savings in the room. So this is, you know, our goal is not to learn all these formulas. Our goal is to save money, time, lives, patient harm, so on. Now, in manufacturing, right, if we have something that's off target, what we want to do is bring it on target. And so what we want this to do is figure out some root causes and figure out how to move it on target. If it's too wide, we want to reduce the spread. And so again, we want to move that data into alignment with what we're trying to do. Get it between those two goalposts, right? And, you know, that's a good thing, right? Now, if you spread all that, if you look at it more from a healthcare perspective, where there's an upper spec on how long you can wait before thrombolytics, before door to balloon time, all of these things, right? That is something where there's an upper spec, because after 60 minutes or something, you know, if you're having a stroke or, you know, there's a heart blockage, it starts to damage the heart or the brain. And so if there's 60 minutes up here, what we want to do is move that to the left, because there is no floor. You know, how long does anybody want to wait for emergency care? 0 seconds, right? So what we want to do is collapse that. You know, I don't know about you, but if I go to some of these fast foody kind of restaurants, I place an order, and then I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and I wait, and eventually my order comes out the other end, right? That's not how I want to be, right? I want it fast. And that's what everybody wants. The new standard out there is free, perfect, and now. So what I'd like to do is talk to you for a second about why you want to bother with control charts. And, you know, when I go to these conferences at the Healthcare Improvement, American Society for Quality, National Association of Healthcare Quality, and I look at the poster presentations, most of them use line charts, and very often they have trend lines on them. Well, what's wrong with line charts and trend lines? Let me show you. So I just started tweaking this, so I have a little gap in the world here. But you get the idea that here's a thing showing a line chart with a trend line. And these are a type of urinary tract infections. Well, it turns out that our goodness of fit metric, which almost nobody supplies with their trend line, only showed 30% fit. Now, I don't know about you, but I would not want to stake my reputation on it, on a 30% fit. But at all of these conferences, I see people walking around, they go, oh, that's cool, and they're taking pictures with their cell phone because, like, they're going to go back and implement that in their hospital or their manufacturing line or their whatever. And that scares me, right? That really scares me, because you're going to waste a lot of time on something that isn't an improvement. If we put that into a control chart, what you'll see is that we had one out of control point, and the rest of the process was stable. There's no actual improvement in this improvement story. And that's the gap between a line chart with a trend line and a control chart. Control charts will tell you the truth, right? We got a nice stable process. Here's another one. So our R squared is 0.53 or 53%. But if we drew it as a control chart, we could see that there was actually a process shift actually after they got done with that. And so we went from about 9 down to, this is another type of hospital-acquired infection, down about a 5% rate. Okay? So get this idea that these kinds of numbers can really help you. Now here's another one. This one, they combined another type of chart and rate And you can see they put a line graph on top of a bar chart, which essentially is telling the same story. So that when you put a line chart and a bar chart like this together, you've got Dumb and Dumber, and so it looks like there's something going on here, but there's not. But the R-squared value was 0.06. There's no improvement here, right? This is just the saddest thing in the world, I think. If you draw it as a C chart, you'll see there's some out of control conditions. It looks like something may have started to improve out here in March, but we don't have enough data points to verify that. So I want you to get this idea that trend lines on line charts are often fake news, and you should be very cautious when you see one. And that's why we want, whoops, somehow I left all those in there. Sorry. So, are you chart smart? Right? Are your charts smart? You know, these charts went to college, they took statistics so that you don't have to, right? I'm against it. If we can automate things, great. And so they don't, line charts, bar charts, pie charts are just not going to cover it. So once you start doing control charts and we start showing you any out of control conditions, then you can do a little root cause analysis. Well, why was this high? Right? What's happening here? That was an improvement project, right? And you can show process changes. I showed you how to do that as well. And that process change wizard will do that automatically. Ed Cowell said, you have a way of making statistics and charting user-friendly and more easily applied. That's my goal, right? That's my goal. Now, one of the things that is funny is that you can take a bar chart and put it with a line graph, and in this case, it's a sorted bar chart, so the big bars at the end. Add in a cumulative line graph, so I'm putting a bar chart and a line chart together, and then they become actually smart. Right? This is one of the ways that these two things work best together. Right? And so we only want to work on the things that are the biggest problems, and as you can see here, 2/3 of them, these three things are about 2/3 of the total mistakes and errors in patient harm, or folded flaps, or packaging errors, right? And I see this over and over again. You don't have to fix everything. You only have to fix the things that are really a problem. Now, let me go back over here. Oh my God. So we could go over here. I think I have some. Come on. Further, further, further. Come on. There we go. So here you can see there was measurements of different kinds of bugs and errors. But what we can do here is select that. And we could select the total over here. And we could actually turn that into a Pareto chart. So all you have to do to select non-connected things is select the first one, hold down the control key on your PC, and select the other ones and click Pareto chart. And so here you can see that we have kind of a perflato chart, but under torque, leaker, non-start. This will give you a very nice Pareto chart. And I could come back over to our data here. Now we might have things where we have medication errors at 3, 6, 0, 6, and 18 months. So maybe what we do is we can select all of those and get Pareto charts of all of them. So our baseline errors, wrong technique, wrong time, wrong technique, wrong time, wrong time. But you can see here the top number goes down from 90 to 50 to 30. So we're actually making improvements, and we can show that with these Pareto charts. Now, if you're crazy like me, you would come over here and line these up like this. And I might actually just come in here and shrink that just a little bit. But you can compare these two Pareto charts. Just some ideas about how you could go about this. And I don't know if I have that in here. Let's see. Oh, I know. I'll go over here. Now we'll come back. I'm going to grab another bit of data here. So if we look at our data mining data, I could come over here to ICU sedation medications, and I could turn that into a Pareto chart just by clicking on the heading and letting the Pareto chart count that for me. All right? And so I could take text and let it count all of that and turn that into a thing. Lorazepam and propofol are 77% of ICU sedation medications. So we want to fix over sedation. We want to focus on those two medications. This makes sense. It's pretty easy, but there's lots of different ways to go and look at this data. And we could have taken that same data and if you'd have done the improvement project wizard, it had said, what can I do with that, and turned it into a Pareto chart. There's more than one way to get there from here. And then another possibility is, I'll show you this one because I found this very useful. Sometimes we have text that's been typed in by a help center or a call center, or in healthcare this might be the written comments from patients. And what we want to do is figure out if there's anything unique in these words. Now, I used to use some tools in Excel, but they were painful. If you go under text and data mining, we have a word count wizard. And again, the word count wizard will parse this into 1- and 2-word phrases. And as it does that, it'll come up with the biggest, most frequent words. So it gets rid of the and stuff like that. Dupe, date of service, reject, day, same, multiple day, right? So day, reject, dupe, date of service, multiple visits, same day, date of service, I think there might be something going on here. Right? Somehow I got off track. What did you do to me? Excel jumped out of me. All right, so you get this idea that we could find a Pareto pattern using the word count wizard, especially when you have data that looks like people typing stuff in. All right, so that's kind of a lot of different ways to go about getting a Pareto chart. We have one professor who tortures his students and has them draw a Pareto chart by hand. If you've ever drawn one by hand, it does take somewhere around a half an hour to an hour to get it done. And by then, you're really committed to it, right? But if you can draw it in seconds, not so much. But he found it took their students, on average, 43 minutes to 75, and then he has them use the QI macros. And in seconds, they have a finished Pareto. So there's over 40 different kinds of charts on the main menu. Lots of chart wizards. There's actually a control chart templates wizard, which will go pick the right template for you, a process change wizard. They'll do the math, draw the graph, and give you the right tools at the right price. But another thing that I found was people wanted a way to be able to keep their data up to date and their charts up to date. And so we started creating fill-in-the-blank templates. Fill-in-the-blank templates. Now, the nice thing about a fill-in-the-blank template is you enter your data and charts grow automatically. Let me show you how that works. I'm going to close out my data mining. And there we go. So for example, if we have data that looks like this, acid concentration, and this is, again, manufacturing data. If we come under control chart templates, if you know what you're doing, you could come down and pick whatever pack you wanted to use. If you don't know, you can just click on the control chart templates wizard. Works just like our control chart wizard, except it'll bring up a template. Right? And so here it takes your data, drops it into our template. Now next, then you can start putting in new data, and the new data will add to the chart as it grows. And this makes it super simple to do the hardest part of quality improvement, which is sustaining the improvement. right? If you're using DMAIC, it's the control phase, right, where you put in control charts to monitor what's going on. Same thing is true in hospitals, monitoring patient falls and medication errors and all that other stuff, right? You have to monitor that because almost everybody I talk to tells me the sad story of how they made a great improvement and 6 months later it was gone. And I say, did you guys put in a control system, control charts to monitor it and corrective actions to fix it if it goes bad? No. Almost invariably, the answer I get is no. And so this is a super easy way to do that. And again, you can just come in and start typing in your new numbers, and it'll just keep adding as you go. All right, so super simple way to do the control phase. And again, all of these things live underneath here. All right. Now, once I did this, people came up to me and said, Jay, what, we want to put all of these together into a dashboard. So I want to take all my key process indicators and I want to put them into a control chart dashboard. And so, customers ask, and then I figure out how to do it. So here's our control chart dashboards. We have an attribute dashboard, a Levi Jennings dashboard used in laboratories, an XMR dashboard, and an XBAR dashboard. I'm just going to do the XMR just to give you an idea how this works. So first we have a data sheet here. And you can see we have at labels and then columns. And you can put your chart title in here. And I'll do patient satisfaction. And then I'll do injury rate. And so now I've got some things. And I have an average chart, a rolling chart, a scrolling chart, or a median XMR chart. And here you can see it's gone ahead and put in our data, patient satisfaction. I can scroll through, I can click on the next button and go to the next one, injury rate. And when I'm ready, then I can say I want to create an XMR or a histogram dashboard. And so it'll go ahead and crunch its way through, make copies of those templates, which you can see down here, patient sat and injury rate, and it'll build our control chart dashboard. And then next month you come along and you say, okay, number 8, and our patient sat went to 87, and our injury rate went to 5.4, and then I say I refresh the charts, and it'll go refresh all of my charts and add that new data point onto our chart. If we want to, then we can start doing things like running stability analysis and, oh, look, there's something went on. Something happened right there, okay? So there's something going on with injury rates. Maybe we're starting to make an improvement. So again, the chart menu works on these charts as well. All right, so that's our control chart dashboard. And again, this makes it uber easy to monitor all of your key process indicators. And I gave a presentation at the National Association of Healthcare Quality in 2018. And in 2019, when we were still having conferences live and in person, a couple of people came up to me and said, we went back, we stripped out all of our line charts, we put in the control chart dashboards, and it makes the hospital so much easier to manage because we know when things are doing normal things, and we know when they're starting to go out of control, right? And so in that way, it makes it much easier to detect what's going wrong in your process. And again, those live under the control chart templates. There we go. So that's our control chart dashboards. We had one guy that was the fire chief in Snohomish, Washington, which got the first COVID patient, and he did control chart dashboards of N95 masks, patients, reuse gowns, surgical, the burn rate for all of his things that he needed to keep the paramedics running, and and I did one for Denver for a while just to get a sense of what that might look like. And so you can start to see when cases start to go out of control. Mary Ayuso at Adventist Hospital says, every 2 weeks I have to update 600 control charts for more than 30 hospitals. I used to spend 3 days doing it. Since we started using control chart dashboards from QI Macros, we do that in just 3 hours. So these tools can save you a ton of time and keep all of your metrics up to date. And I think this is another super powerful tool in the QI macros, which you will not find elsewhere. Now we also have fill-in-the-blank templates like fishbones and value stream maps. Let me show you how that works. What have I got open here? I'm going to close out our XMR dashboard. And I'm going to go in here and so one of the things I do is I use control charts, Pareto charts, and fishbones, and often follow it up with countermeasures and an action plan. And so you see we have fishbone diagrams here. But we also have them under improvement tools. Under lean tools, you can see that we have value stream maps. But the value stream map and the fishbone work very similarly. So here you can see we have some instructions, but there's an outline, and you put in your problem statement here. And we have the big bone, and this one's set for healthcare, but we could change it to manufacturing, machines, methods, so on. Your first Y, your second, third, and fourth Y. And so you can just transfer that. I always do this with the advanced technology called a Post-it note, and then I transfer it into something like this. So here's a manufacturing example. This came from the American Society for Quality. Once you have your Y's in here, you click on Create Fishbone, and it'll go out and create a fishbone diagram, which is in the next box. And here you can see we have the ability to circle the root causes. In this case, maybe our problem was calibration. Or we could put in a healthcare example. This is the insufficient ICU mobilization of ventilated patients. So we could take that and create the fishbone. And it turns out that in this case it was oversedation. So it will build your fishbone diagram straight from scratch. All right? And so that's a pretty quick way to get your fishbones done. Now we also have the same sort of a tool under the value stream maps, where you put in your value stream text, create the value stream, and that'll spin up a value stream map. We also have some examples out here that you can use. Here's an emergency room one I did for one hospital. We have a variety of symbols, and all you have to do is copy those symbols, and you can paste them anywhere you want. So if I say copy that, I can go out to my value stream map and then paste that in there. And then and Excel has like a little mini Visio built into it. So you can come into our shapes, and we can pick a line. So maybe I want to do a line here. I can connect that line to this line, and then when I move that around, it should follow it. There we go. All right, so you can connect the dots. It's a mini Visio, but it'll do a lot of things you want. Now I'm going to close that for a second. Now what do you do if you don't know how to find stuff? All right, I'm going to close the fishbone as well. If you don't know how to find it, there's a button on the top right called Find Tools. So Jay, I want a SIPOC diagram. And it'll go find it, and it'll open that template. And here you can see we have our SIPOC diagram. I could come back in, and if you're in manufacturing, maybe you want the gauge R&R template. It'll go find that and open that up. I find measurement systems analysis is most often used in manufacturing. There might be applications of attribute gauge R&R in healthcare, but most of the time this is a manufacturing thing to detect how your gauges and your measurement systems are working. So I just want you to get this idea that we can go find the tools pretty easily. Again, that's the Find tool right up here on the top right. All right, so I showed you the value stream map. We have the design of experiments. It's not fancy, but it's functional, right? Two level QFD and QFD. So a lot of tools in here. Now let me show you the stat wizard. Because I work manually in service industries, especially healthcare, very often I haven't gotten around to using statistics that much. I use the control charts, I use all the charts and things, but I am not as much using statistical stuff. But here you can see we have some data. The stat wizard is way over here. But you can see we have hardwood concentration. This is like different hardwoods for like a paper bag in a store. And these are the bursting strengths of those bags. If you select that data with your mouse, again, we're selecting the data. If you knew what you were doing, you'd come in and run descriptive statistics, ANOVA single factor, and then you'd come down and do a Levene's test for variance. But if you're like me, I don't use it often enough, so I'm going to let the stat wizard figure out what to do for me. And it'll go look at your data and say, what can I do with that? And then it'll come back and say, the data is normal, the variances are not different, but the means are different. So it's done in ANOVA single factor. It threw in a box and whisker plot. So you can see that the means are different, right? It came in and did a Levene's test for variance, but found that the variances are the same. It did descriptive statistics to see if the data is normal, right, and calculates a lot of your basic statistics. And since these are all integers, it could have been a chi-square test, so it goes ahead and does a chi-square analysis. Now that one doesn't apply, but because it's integers, I just pretend it might be a chi-square test. All right, so that's a pretty fast way to get results, right? I think this one is for blood thinners, right? And you can see there's lots of different examples. What about drug A, B, and C? What happens there? All right, and we have example data for all kinds of things that you'll find in here. F-tests, T-tests. There's a T-test one sample, equivalence testing, T-test for data, and so on, and regression data. And again, with regression, all you have to do is select your data with the mouse. We could come down and choose regression. It's going to ask you which one is the Y values. In this case, it's the last column. And it'll go ahead and do regression analysis and figure out what's going on and provide you with your charts of what's come out of the process. All right, so this is how we do it in the QI macros. Now we also have some fill-in-the-blank templates for F-test, T-test, 1 and 2 proportion tests. We have some non-normal tests built in here. But again, I made those as templates because they weren't being used as often. All right, so that's a little bit about the statistics. So, now once you get this idea, you don't have to be a geek or a statistician to use QI macros. Select some data with your mouse, click a button, get a chart. Rick Hinton says, I don't dread crunching numbers, and my presentation is worthy of forwarding to my customer. And we have frontline workers using it too. So nurses can just type numbers into a spreadsheet and one of our templates and get a chart upgraded. And we have people that on assembly lines, they either type the number in or they use a little digital gauge to click things and drop numbers into one of our templates. So, if you're doing high volume, I wouldn't recommend it, but low volume, sure, why not? And I don't want you to spend a fortune to get the tools you want. James Harrington, one of the gurus of Six Sigma, recommends it to all of his green belt, black belt, and master belt, black belt classes because we are the best overall value. And you can train anyone in minutes. There we go. So you come out to QI Macros and go under free training, you'll find we have free video tutorials. You'll find a previously recorded version of this webinar. And then we have things like Lean Six Sigma Agile trainer training, white belt training, yellow belt training. And so here you can see I have a practice workshop for healthcare and a practice workshop for manufacturing. And if you want to know anything about anything in here, if you want to know about the control chart wizard, you can watch a video here any time of day, 24/7. The Agile trainer training is out here. And if you'll notice, if you come out under our free training under Agile, if you scroll down here, you can click on our Agile Process Innovation book, and it will open that up for you, and you can read all about Agile. And we have a free yellow belt training out here as well. So lots of free resources, and if you want to find something out, somebody asked me at a presentation, well, I want to know more about pivot tables. Then you'll find our videos and then anything else that's in QI Macros about how to do pivot tables. So there's a lot of depth in our website, and so you can find that all just by typing something into our search box up here. So I think you know it's going to be fast and easy and fun. I think we provide all the tools that you'll need to get major traction, start reducing delay, defects, and deviation, patient harm, increasing profits and productivity. And Stephen Lavau says, this is probably one of the easiest, best packages to use. So we talked about all the parts. If you want to go deeper, you want to learn more about solving problems with data, you can find out the yellow belt training here, how to teach Agile under Agile training, and get the QI macros to download and start automating all this data analysis. So that's it. A little bit about QI macros. I know this is a high-speed tour, but again, you can reach out to support@qimacros.com. You can find out more about our stuff at testimonials, and I have a free newsletter that I do. All right, so every month we do a free QI macros newsletter. You can sign up here, and under free resources, you can get into my improvement insights, and you can find everything that's going on. I do like a 3-minute video once a month, and you can sign up here on our website. All right, any other questions I can answer for any of you? Appreciate all your time. Our time's almost up here.